All right, so Jen Jones, Connect and Elevate. This is our special edition series, and I'm going to date stamp this as April 3rd, 2020. So everyone who's watching or listening will know context of which we're talking. The title of our talk is Permission to Crumble. And we have Michelle Murcia here, who is a coach and who has also done public speaking. And I'm going to leave that bio to you. So Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself and then we can get down to business.
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. My title is that I am the owner of a company called Create Honesty Inc. That is the overarching company. Within that, I'm a coach mainly for kind of small business and entrepreneurial and professional women, as well as a speaker and an author. So that's kind of my bio, as well as a corporate refugee. So that's where I take all my professional stuff and put it into play.
And she's also the leader of the Worcester chapter Polka Dot
Powerhouse.
Polka Dot Powerhouse. We could, there's
yes, of course.
Things, but
yeah, because they're amazing, and I need to mention them. Shout out to my dots. Yes.
Awesome. So Michelle, we've been talking, maybe not daily, but we've been talking pretty regularly. One, I'm on the leadership for Dots, and we're friends, and we have another group together.
Yep.
And honestly, it's this, I guess, a time where you only can talk to those people who you think understand. And if you show the real you, while you're in not 100%, it's like, okay, well then I just can't talk to anyone, or I have to hide it because what are people going to think?
Right.
So let's chat a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I think we all have that kind of inclination, right? We're all very used to, putting out that facade, a sense, right? As businesswomen, as, just individuals, right? And the reason why way back in the day, a couple of years ago, that I founded a company called Create Honesty Inc. was because I was kind of sick of that. I felt like I checked all the boxes in my life and I still wasn't happy. I felt like, I was in crisis quite a bit with kids in and out of the hospital and a lot of things going on. And I really got kind of sick of people saying, how are you? But not fully meaning, how are you?
Yeah.
I think we've all experienced when someone said like, how are you? But they don't really want to know. So for me, number one, social media is social media. It is the final performance. It is not showing the dress rehearsals, right? So, I picked Permission to Crumble because I believe there's more of us crumbling behind the scenes than it looks like on social media. So.
Yes. And you bring up a great point because, social media, you're like, there's studies and all this other stuff. And that's like your picture perfect self.
Right.
And it's nice to see when people are not, but it's hard to put yourself out there. Even besides the times that we're in right now, I remember last January on my bathroom floor crying because I just couldn't handle it anymore.
Right.
And I remember doing a Facebook Live, scared to death because what are people going to think? And I felt like people need to hear this.
They do.
And even now, I'm exhausted today and I resisted the urge to get the straightener out and put some makeup on because I was like, you know what? On Friday, this happened to me last Friday too. So I feel like as the week goes on, Friday
you crash. You crash. Yep.
Especially if you're not taking care of yourself.
And I think it's extremely important for people who run communities like you, like me, to say we're not okay either, So I think that's one thing you and I have had a lot of conversations about in the last couple of weeks is again, what you see right here does not mean in 5 minutes, an hour from now, we're not crying and having panic attacks, right? Because that, number one, in this, what we're dealing with in this climate that we're dealing with is completely natural, right? We're on a roller coaster of emotions. And I think that is okay, right? It is okay, which I think people are challenged with, 1 minute you're happy and the next minute you're crying. That's completely acceptable in this climate that we're in. It's a crisis for a reason. But I think it's extremely important for leaders of communities right now to say we're not okay either. We've never, I don't know anyone who's ever led through a pandemic. Do you? And also from a coach perspective too, I have to look kind of put together for my clients because it does give people a sense of security, which I can appreciate. And that's my role. And as that's your role as a leader too, but it's also equally our role to say, it's okay to be a hot mess in this time too. And we're human, right?
Yeah, no, and I think that you bring up a good point is that, you do want your clients to see like you are put together most of the time, especially because you're supporting them. But then let's remember that it's okay that when you're done to take care of yourself.
Right.
It's not run and go make dinner or go make lunch for this whole breakfast, lunch, dinner thing for me.
So just eat whenever you want to, girl. Like,
so this is totally off topic, but hopefully we have like 10 people on. So I spent a couple days, like Monday or Tuesday, I can't even remember now. And I just cooked like 2 or 3 meals. And so we've just been like, people are just getting what they need.
Yeah. And that's it. And that's okay. Yeah. I mean, I think, it was funny last Thursday, I had like kind of like a power day, as I'm sure many of you have, with like back-to-back calls. One was my therapist, one was my coach, the other one was my functional doctor. And I was like, give it out to me, ladies. What can you give me? And the biggest piece of advice that I got out of that, which, is advice I've gotten through every crisis, is, really ground yourself, right? Ground yourself in those cooking of the meals and be smart about it. Don't hold yourself to expectations that are completely unrealistic. For many of the clients that I'm working with, and myself included, the priority order is me, my family, my business. Like 1, 2, 3, if you can afford that, right? Because I understand there's a lot of fear in that too. But, you just need to do you. And it's a very individualized decision, which is hard for all of us because we're all used to kind of looking on the peripheral, like, am I good? Is this person doing this? Is this person doing that? But the difference is also right now, I know you're feeling it, I'm feeling it, most of us are feeling it. There's a mad rush to pivot businesses right now. Yeah. And that comes with an additional layer of pressure. Yeah. And I'm not talking about pivot so that you can eat. Pivot so you can pay your bills. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the FOMO that's around pivoting your business and everything about it. But eventually you also want to make sure that you don't come out of this more burnt out from pivoting than, functioning, like.
Yeah. So do you have like some tips for functioning? Yeah, some tips for us? Cause I think that that's something that has been pushed out there and almost even you see it on Facebook and I've just significantly reduced my Facebook time because it gets me out crazy. Yep. But I see a lot of people, and I don't want to use the word negatively, but taking advantage of the fact that we are in a crisis and kind of going for it. And, when I look at that and I'm like, wow, like, I hope that is helping somebody. Yeah. So how, do you have some tips for us?
I mean, I think what I've been advising people, and again, I try to walk the walk and not just talk the talk here, is, if you are making business decisions from a place of fear, that's going to get you in trouble, right? I think situations like this really bring out they unmask people for who they really are, right? So you can see people taking advantage, right? But it's your job. I think we talked about this too. Like, you can have the judgment thoughts, you can have those negative thoughts. It's how you act on them after that, right? And you're only human to have those reactions. But I think, fear-based decision-making, try to avoid it if at all possible. And I know that is a tall ask right now. That is a very tall ask. But, I had somebody earlier I was coaching who was like, I just want to close up shop. Fuck this, basically. She's like, shut it all down. That in itself can be a strategy if it's from a place of not being reactionary. Does that make sense? Yeah. If you want to shut it down for a day or two, the good thing right now is that we are all in a level playing field somewhat. Yeah. So that gives you, whereas before we were all running so fast and to keep up with each other, we don't want to recreate that running in this crisis, right? Because it's going to hurt us even more. I don't know if that's really helpful.
You bring up a good point though, because the running, right? So I felt like I was like doing okay with like figuring life out.
Okay.
Like, right?
Me too.
All right, like I'm in a groove, my daughter was feeling better. And so it's like, okay, like I'm freeing up some space to be able to do some things. And then it's like, yeah, now we've been home for 2-3 weeks, however long it's been. And I've been giving a lot
Yep.
and trying
Yep.
to like fill up, but I have realized that I'm not filling up enough.
Right.
Like fill up just enough to expend it again very quickly.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that we have to be very cognizant about, is that the energy is going to be expended a lot quicker. And it's a lot easier to give your energy out, especially when you're action-oriented people like you and I both are. And I know many members of this group are. I was joking around with people earlier, like I spun up a friggin' business website and a hub in like 48 hours. Why? Because I'm an action-oriented person. And I was like, deflect. Don't look at the craziness over here. Let's put all our energy here because I can control it. But you're going to hit a wall, like I did. I spent most of the end of last week, like I said, in panic attacks, crying my eyes out. You were, I was crying on the dot meeting. Memo to all the dots. Like, you probably didn't know it, but Jen knew it because I was texting her. And it's going to catch up with you. And that's the thing, is we all need to be very cognizant of filling it up more than you normally would.
Right.
Extenuating circumstances. Like, it's a fucking pandemic. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Seriously. No. And of course, like, you're aware, but then you're not aware until you're like, wait a minute, didn't I just fill up? Like, not like hours.
Like 5 seconds ago?
Yeah. Like, I don't understand how I'm back.
Yeah. And I think it's not black and white either, right? Because we as women tend to do the like, oh shit, I didn't fill up. What are you, an idiot? You need to fill up. Like, and then you beat yourself up for not filling it up, right? And we can't do that either. What we need to do is just adjust quicker on the next week, right? I think all of us have felt like each week has somewhat gotten a little, I don't even want to use the word normalized or easier, but you know what I mean? Like a little bit more adjusted maybe. But there's days where it's not. There's days where it is. There's days when the simple joys are overflowing, and there's days when it doesn't seem like there are any. So, just being very easy with yourself and trying to curb the judgment of yourself too is key to filling up too.
Compassion. I keep bringing it up to other people and to remind myself, right? Compassion. And really trying to find those little itty bitty glimmer of hope throughout that day that looked very glim and gloomy, like today here is in Massachusetts. But, being able to say, you know what? My kids ate today. It may have been cereal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like
they ate,
right? But you know what? Like it is, right? It just is.
Yeah.
So, Angela actually she said, when we were talking about pivoting, she said, yes, there's so much pressure to pivot. I know I have to, but all the information coming at me is overwhelming, not to mention remote learning, because she has a son.
Absolutely.
And all that good stuff.
Yeah.
She wants to do it smartly. Yeah.
I'm waiting for my accreditation when all this is done.
Right? Seriously, we're all going to be, crazy.
No.
So I think that is a big talk, is the pivot, but even, I guess getting, your partner on board, trying to, I don't know how else to say it. Like, my husband was super upset this morning, and, and he's been home too. And it's like, what is he upset about? And then I just want him to like, not be upset, because that's how I am.
Yeah. You're like, just fix that shit. Get it done. Move on to happiness. Yeah. I get it.
It just reminded me that we are all dealing with this differently. Yes. And he's not a talker, so he's not going to just talk it out with me. It's one of those things, on his own time, he'll sort of fill me in. But I got mad. I was like, pull it together.
Yeah. You're like, come on, get your shit together. We have learning to give. Yeah.
And then I'm like, how many times did I break down this week?
Exactly. And I think that's where, when you asked me the title of this, I was like, permission to crumble, but that doesn't just mean for you, and I can say this too, but I mean, my husband and I are brawling like, every couple probably is right now in a house, especially with children, or, any relationship, never mind couple are, because you're in each other's space. Right. But I think we all need to remember too, that emotions are on a spectrum. Right. And I can't remember who it is, but they talk about, the either end of the spectrum. And sometimes people try to move people from like complete like despair all the way to joy. It doesn't work that way. And I use that with my kids sometimes too. You just need to get them one step closer to the joy. You don't need to get them all the way across the friggin' board.
I'm going to find that, because I can't,
it's escaping me right now. And I think also my husband and I have been through a lot of stuff, a lot of shit together. So, you know, he can basically set his watch by the point in which I will run myself into a wall and then lose it, right? And I can set my watch by the point in which he will kind of shut it down and then want to come and talk. So it's understanding those dynamics too in the house, and also not being naive to say that some of the burden and some of the responsibility are going to fall on the more proactive individual in the house.
Yes. Yep. I think the person who, you know, because usually we're polar opposites, right? Yes. You know, the go-getter, get it done. Let's, you know, we're not messing around with this. Let's go. That's the person who's get it done because it needs to get done.
And I think sometimes that person, you know, myself included, feels like, okay, just because I can doesn't mean I should all the time. Right. And that goes across the board. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Right. And I think especially in a case of, you know, something like this, where everybody is feeling the range of emotions at such rapid speeds and almost like a grief process being the key word. It can be very triggering when somebody's not at the same step of the process. It can be very infuriating, you know, when you are being the proactive one and you're not seeing the same productivity on the other side. You know, I think it takes the patience of a saint sometimes to deal with these, but it also takes communication, and it does take crumbling, right? Whether it's in the way that you do it or the way that somebody else does it, you need to allow that to come off.
Yeah. And so I think that's a great point, because it's not just, you know, it's everybody in the house, right? It's, you know, my almost 5-year-old who, you know, at the end of the day has pretty much had it, like, and, you know, and you're like, why is he acting like this? Oh, yeah. Now I remember. And he's so confused. Like, why can't I go see my friends? Like, you know that, like, it's just comforting them, and remembering to take care of yourself, because that's giving and remembering to refuel. And that, I'm just saying, I'm repeating it because I need to hear it, right?
And I think it's not about action either. A lot of people think that they see somebody that's hurting, or they see somebody and they need to fix them, right? Like, we're like, why are you upset? Let me fix you. Let me like rearrange things, especially because it comes from a good place of intention, right? Like if your kids are upset, or someone you love is upset, you want to fix it, and you want to, you know, partially so you don't have to see it, and partially because you don't want them to be in pain. But sometimes, you know, we just need to walk together through the shit, right? Like we just need to have that person who stands beside you. And maybe that can't be your partner. Maybe that needs to be a girlfriend.
Right.
Maybe that needs to be somebody else, but it's somebody who just says like, yes, this sucks. Who doesn't try to one up you with how much theirs sucks over yours, because that's not cool either right now. You know, but just says, this is fucking hard. Like, this is hard, but we will do it because we've beaten the most of our hard days. Right.
Look at some messages here.
Of course.
Helping others get a few steps away from fight or flight. We were just talking about that. Yes.
Yeah, fight or flight. They're real, man. You know, and I think as a society too, there's a lot of articles and stuff coming out that have come out before about like our fight or flight is messed up, right? Because it used to be from running from lions, and now it's like, oh shit, our social media is not working. Like you flip out, you know? So I think really grounding yourself and saying, you know, like you said before, like, it doesn't have to be a freaking gourmet meal that you're serving, but did you eat? Yes. Check the bare minimum boxes and keep your expectations low.
Yeah.
You know, for yourself. Expectations low. And then, you know, with clients, I've been saying like, okay, well, what's on your to-do list? Let's keep your expectations low and in check. Keep your priorities in check. Easier said than done, but you know, you can still make an attempt. And if it doesn't work, that's what you pivot on, quite frankly.
So to just piggyback on the expectations, right? Like I went into this with like some big expectations.
Me too.
I'm going to like all the things that I wanted to get done. I was getting done, and my office is going to be like so organized, and my kids are going to like figure that out. And, you know, my online business is going to be up and running and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be fine. Like,
yeah, okay. Yeah. That's what we all think though. That's what we all thought. And it's funny. I was like, look at this. I can finally clean out every single thing I haven't had a chance to clean out in the past 3-4 years. Like, no, maybe I'll watch a movie with my kids instead, you know, but also there is something to be said about those projects. Right. And it's funny, like I look at, maybe it's the coach in me or all the therapy I've had or whatever you want to say and all the stuff I've read. But every time I see somebody cleaning something out, you know, that's a sense of control. Right.
Oh, for sure.
And it comes down to, you know, I know when I'm stressed out, I'm going to clean my kitchen. I know when I'm stressed out, my office is going to look spotless because it's in my little hemisphere of being able to control it. And there's nothing wrong with that as a coping mechanism, as long as it's not adding to the burnout.
Right. And that you're not pushing those feelings down.
Right. If escapism, right? Escapism in a good way. You know, you want to watch a movie, you want to read a book, you want to escape into something healthy like that in the short term, but just know that those emotions are coming. They're coming at some point. Yeah. That's when the pressure cooker kind of view comes in play.
Yeah. And you brought up grief, and it was ironic. Like 3 weeks ago when I was like, this feels like grief. And then you see all these articles sort of coming out and I'm like, oh, I didn't think much of it, but I was just like, this is like sort of this, you know, got a divorce. Like there was this grieving process. So I feel like we are grieving our past life. And that was only a couple, 2-3 weeks ago.
And it wasn't that far ago. And I think some people would say, well, that's dramatic, you know, which number one, if you negate somebody's emotions that quickly, maybe we shouldn't be talking to that person. You know, but I think it's a change. It was funny. I saw a post today because of Autism Awareness Day yesterday. You know, you wear blue for autism and stuff like that. And it was funny because it says, oh, not so easy when your environment is uprooted or something has changed and you can't function, right? Which is very similar in the autism world, right? And I think we as a society really do underestimate the impact of change, which is why you don't see heavy duty change management training in corporate land. You don't see a lot of that given to us, and we don't have tools. We don't necessarily have tools to deal with change.
These are drastic changes.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the control, right? Because we felt like we were in control, even though that was an illusion too. But, but just figuring out like how to manage through, and going back to the expectations. We were talking yesterday on our Connect and Elevate Connection Zoom was, you know, even if you have a list of things that you want to get done, just pick one thing that you want to accomplish. Yeah. You know, you don't have to like pick 3, just one thing, you know, and if you don't want to accomplish anything, then just
don't accomplish anything.
Right. Yeah. It's out of your mind. It's on paper. You almost feel relief when it gets written down.
Get it out of your head because it's one less thing. I mean, that's just good advice, crisis or no, right? Like to just get it out of the swirl that is your brain. You know, but I think there's something to be said about what you just said about like, if you don't want to do it, right? Going back to kind of that pressure that folks are feeling, and the guilt you feel, it's a double-edged sword, right? You feel guilt because you're not, you know, taking your business and pivoting or doing whatever the hell definition of that is, or you feel guilt because your children are screaming in the background and you're not being there, or, you know, there's enough guilt to go around, right? And we're going to feel it from every fucking angle.
No, seriously, like it.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I mean, and this is going to sound like a very blanketed statement that may piss people off, but like at the end of the day, I'd rather watch a movie with my kid. Like, is my bottom line going to suffer for it? Maybe, or maybe I might just, you know, bring myself back some energy to be more creative on my business tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think that's during any time,
anything.
You know, if you're like grinding and grinding and grinding, you're sort of just spinning your wheels. You take a step back, you know, and I know that there's worry and fear and all that stuff during this time, but that's heightened. But I think, you know, taking a look at that and just saying like, okay, like I'm going to do this because this is what I want to do, and getting into out of your head into your heart. So that's my what I've been talking about, connect and elevate for so long. Get out of your head, heart, and ask yourself, like, what do you feel like doing?
Right.
And you'll know,
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's almost a feeling, a sense of calm that comes over you when you do that. And I'm very logical. So like the whole thing with the heart thing is really difficult, but when I actually focus and do it, I feel so much better.
Yeah, and you can tune out the noise that way too, right? Because there's so much noise right now. There's a lot of noise on the daily, right? But even now, there's so much noise, and I feel like as a collective in this planet, we're going to get a little woo-woo here. Like, the more anxiety, the more we're going to elevate. Again, the theory is escaping me, but my amazing coach Marilyn Taylor was telling me, one of my coaches was telling me about, there's a study where when pendulums all are put in the same room, they all swing together. Yep. They will automatically sync. So we as kind of a group need to be very careful of that, because energy flows to energy. And as potential moms, as potential leaders of companies, all of that stuff, it's fine to freak out because we all are human, but at the same time, we all need to make a conscious choice to find those bright spots, to bring the joy. As who is it, the Habits for Success guy?
Steve Covey.
No. Brendan Burchard. Burchard, talks about habits of high performers.
Oh, okay.
He said, like, you need to be intentional about bringing the joy, right? Joy isn't just, you may find it here and there, but, for myself, I'm planning it. Like, I will schedule that shit in on a good day. Like, here's my joy moment. Like, now,
my word of the year last year was joy. And that was really asking, and it came from that book, The Organizer Lady.
Marie Kondo?
Yes. And it was taking that concept and bringing it into my business and saying, like, okay, does this bring me joy? And if not, what am I going to do with it? So I think, maybe this is a time of, settling into your heart and figuring out, like, is this your passion, what you're doing?
Yeah, I think a lot of talk has been given to what will come out of this whole thing, right? Because out of the last recession, I think it was like the Ubers of the world and like all of those really cool and amazing things that came out of, that down period, which is wonderful and great, but you can't create something like that from a place of scarcity thinking. You can't create and innovate from a place of fear, so you need to present yourself in that stuff first and kind of massage your way through it in order to get to that other side of creativity. There's so much good art that's made from a place of pain, which is one way of looking at it, right? But you have to drop to your heart. Does that make sense? Like, in order to do that too, right? I was speaking to a client who is a writer the other day, and we had a really amazing conversation about, go back to your craft. This isn't about like strategically which post you put out here or where you place it or where you schedule it. Go back to your craft. Your craft is writing. Fall back in love with your craft.
Right. And even with Connect and Elevate. So I started doing this 3-day challenge 2-3 weeks ago. And by Wednesday, there was so much going on. I couldn't even get on live like this to our group. And so I just recorded it. But then by Friday, I was like, all right, I'm just going to go live. Like, we are scratching. And I took that and I went into my heart and I've revamped the entire thing. And I am so excited about it because it's come from my heart, not what I think people want.
Exactly.
Right? And not from my head, what I think people want, but actually from my heart, because I've asked people and I've dropped down enough to say, like, wow, this feels amazing. And I can't wait to share it with everybody.
Yeah. Because then you're not as tied to the outcome either.
Right. Yes.
Right. So because when you're producing something and you're just outcome focused, you're going to be also equally as tied to a bad outcome as you are a good outcome.
Yep.
Right. Whereas producing something, and maybe that's because I have a background in theater and music and stuff and performing, like, I can only go out there and give my stuff. I can't control how it's received. I can't control, the outcome. I can just control me delivering.
Yep. Yeah. It's like the law of detachment is the law.
Yeah.
I have struggled with. Last year was an amazing year when I stopped the expectations, the attachment to things, that's when some beautiful stuff has emerged. And I
when
think
you stop pushing, and you're just like,
Michelle, I don't push.
I don't know. I push like on the fucking daily. No, I try not to, but I think when you're in the flow.
Exactly. But I think, you know, there's some habits there from years of that pathway being used, is that, you know, we push, we grind, we hustle, like that's just what we've done. And we realize that that's not what's going to bring us joy in the end.
Yeah. And in all honesty, I despise the word hustle, like a lot. Because as an entrepreneur, I came into this business, you know, and as I like to say, a recovering overachiever, but some people would beg to differ.
I might a little bit, but
on a good day, you know, but I know where my bodies are buried too. Like I know why I'm overachieving now, and I know kind of my routine and what will happen if I do that. I don't even remember where I was going with that, but
you know.
I think
I want to save the world.
Yeah, of course we all want to save the world, right? But you know, I have some really great people around me who will say, Michelle, you can't save the world. But if you do save one person, or you do make an impact on one person's life, that's amazing. Yeah. Right. And
there's a ripple effect to that too.
Yes.
You know,
there is. And I think our fellow dot sister Amanda Grazioli, you know, put a post on Instagram. I can't remember what the hell it said earlier, but I really loved it because it said basically like, go back to your roots, you know, go back to your branding, go back to your why, go back to, you know, those things, whether you own a business or not. Yeah. You know, go back to those things. And when you do crumble, those are the things that are still going to be there. They're the things that are still going to be true. Yeah. You know, for me, I can have a breakdown. I can pivot 50 ways to Sunday, but I will never change the name of my company, Create Honesty, because it keeps me in check. Right. For that part of it, you know, and that's the core.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. More people with expectations of deep cleaning their entire house.
Girl. Yeah. I mean, again, like you do you, right? Like that's the thing. It's an individualized choice, right?
Well, no, she just thought that she was going to be able to deep clean her house, work full time while home with the entire family and with flat spaces. And it's like, yep. Okay,
so did I. Yeah. I was like, I got this. But I didn't and was crying in a ball in the corner. Yeah. Yeah. We all got it until we don't, right, ladies?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is funny.
Yeah.
Yes. And April Small is on Lean Into Your Creative Habit.
Yes. Yeah.
Something that, you know, will also help your mental health. We did a video back at the October series. So if you wanted to search that, she has some amazing tips about how being creative and finding your creative outlet to help your mental health. So
I think, and that's the funny thing that you're seeing everywhere is like, I hope all of you remember that the arts got us through a lot of this when it comes funding time, right? Because I'm a big artist supporter too. And we all do have creativity as long as it doesn't cause you more stress, right? The people who start freaking out about like, it's not good enough if I paint, it's not good enough if I do this, right? But just, you know, just putting it out there.
Stop control, man.
I know, it's the control.
All right. So I don't have anything else. You got anything else, Michelle?
Oh, what else do I have?
I mean, we could talk for another hour. But
I know, we usually do, but you know, I just want to call to the forefront of this conversation, like, because it is like permission to crumble. You know, like I have some kind of quote unquote rules, really they're loose things when it comes to the crumble. And number one is you're entitled to it. Because I feel like sometimes people don't think they're allowed to, or people don't think, or they think they need to earn the right to crumble, and whatever that crumbling looks like. It can happen whenever and however you want it to look like. For myself, it was a 3.5 hour car ride, you know, around wherever I could drive while I cried hysterically, you know, whatever it needs to be. I know moms who are locking themselves in bathrooms and crying, and like, you know, there's no judgment around what that crumble looks like either, as long as it's a little bit cathartic for you. And that you're entitled to it, and there's no right or wrong ways to deal with a difficult situation. Right? I think we like things in black and white as humans. We like them in nice, neat little categories. And this is as messy as it gets right now, right? So knowing that there's no right way to deal with this or no wrong way. There's no right way to pivot your business. There's no wrong way. There's only your way, is a big thing, as well as, being picky with the company you keep during this time.
I was just going to say that.
I think if we have time, just to talk about that topic.
Yeah, no, we have plenty of time.
Alone is
watching. So
yeah. So I think, and I've taken this from a couple different sources and kind of put my own spin on it. But, the company you keep, number one, is the mover, right? The person who pushes you to move through the pain in situation ASAP, kind of like we were just talking about, right? Like regardless of whether you're ready or you're there, your pain makes them feel more uncomfortable, than anything else, right? So that's one kind of, and none of these kind of profiles that I'm describing are good or bad. They just are. And we've probably all inhabited some sort of this, potentially in like the last
I think sometimes we use certain ones for certain people.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So go ahead, keep going.
And the next one, the fixer. So they press a solution on you via comparison, regardless of whether it's a correct match.
Yep.
Right. So you see that a lot. Men are very good fixers, right? Especially like that's just kind of a trait. You give them a problem, they give you a solution, right? It may not be the right solution, and maybe you just want someone to listen too. And I think always never being afraid to say to somebody, like, I'm not looking for you to fix this. I just need you to listen. Mm-hmm. The journalist is always a good one too, who always wants to be the first to know so they can report out on the progress of the story and, the state of the union. The victim who turns the stressful situations around and is upset that you didn't keep them up to date. Mm-hmm. Some of us may have experienced when shit hits the fan and then all of a sudden someone is angry because you didn't tell them your shit was hitting the fan. You're like, I was too busy juggling the crazy over here, which is where the compassion comes in too, because we're all running and juggling as best we know how with the tools that we have. For ourselves. And I think, and then you have the warrior, which is the person who walks beside you through the pain without judgment and respects your process. And I am a big fan of the quote of, I walk beside you wherever you are, whatever it takes, no matter how far. It's the person who will respond back to you and say, yeah, this shit's hard. Yeah. I know it's hard. And especially right now, it's harder because we're all hurting. Right. Usually you'll have somebody who's not hurting versus the person who's hurting. Right. And there's that kind of equal balance, but being very much aware of asking if somebody's okay and meeting it is the key, as well as complaining, right? Like doing equal parts there. Yeah. So, I mean, those are just kind of some of the profiles of people we may see.
Yeah. Do you have a handout that we can attach to?
I can give you the slide, a PDF of the slide.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just so that people can sort of recap that. Because I think it's important to see like the different kind of people and, who you would rather have in your company.
Yeah. And I mean, and again, like you said, like we've each been one of those people. And it depends on how you're handling people. And then individually, I'm always a huge fan of the quote by Glennon Doyle. If you don't know her, go Google her. Her latest book is amazing. That our pain is not the poison, but the lies about the pain are. Yeah. So, as you're going through all this, even if it's not your spouse, even if it's just writing it down, I think once you start telling yourself, I'm fine, and you're really not, that lie is going to be more dangerous than not being fine.
Yeah.
And that's where social media kind of comes in too, right? Because I just dropped a blog the other day that was perfecting the I'm fine, right? The equivalent, you're posting motivational quotes, which we all do, is the equivalent of being fine somehow. But we're not, and that's okay. It's okay that we're not, I don't know. So I guess those are kind of some of the last little tidbits.
Yeah, well, I still see people on, so I might stand on my little soapbox for a second.
Yeah, go ahead. I might get up there with you too.
Yeah, I've been sort of watching, introverts are going to save us during this time. And I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm like, yeah, I love snuggling up on my couch with a good book and, being able to do that, which I have taken the time to do, which has been great. And then I recently read an article that as we are shut in for longer periods of time, introverts are really getting into their shells and forgetting that they need to connect with
Yes.
people. So I'm really
Yeah.
glad to see that we have a handful of people, a dozen people on the live today, because I really want to remind everyone that it's great to be out there, you know, reading, or in there in your house, reading a book or doing whatever makes you happy. I think remembering that connecting with people is really important. So then you're not struggling with some of the other things that might be going on in your head while you are alone.
And I think different ways to approach that too is make appointments, right? Put things in your calendar that you're committed to. I think, you know, because as outwardly spoken as I am definitely an ambi, if not moving as I get older to an introvert. You know, so, and I think for me, if I don't have something on my calendar, if I don't have something scheduled to push myself out of that bubble, you know, you can spiral in your own head. And that's like the most dangerous place to be sometimes, is your own brain. Right. But no, I agree. Like the introverts are going to redeem us all in this.
They sure are. But I, you know, just wanted to reiterate the connection, but also don't overconnect and wear yourself so much out that you need a week off from connecting with people. So try to find, which I feel like I did last week. I totally connected way too much with people. I loved it, but looking back, I could have staggered that a little bit better and, you know, kept some of my energy a little bit more even keel versus like,
I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Like you looking back, right? So you're not going to get it perfect. Nobody is going to get it perfect. Like you'll find a sweet spot and then something else will disrupt it and then something else will happen, you know? So I think that's where people really need to wrap their head around. I had somebody say today on a call, a client that was saying like, well, just when I think it's good, it just blows up again. So I just need to give up. I'm like, well, okay. We'll acknowledge that shit goes wrong and sideways sometimes, but it's never not going to. Right? There's always going to be something that gets in your way. Big, small, pandemic, not pandemic, whatever. This is a little bit of an extreme, but I think, like you said, being able to look back and say, okay, last week didn't work so well. What can I adjust this week? Like, what can I adjust today? Even like in the minutia of your day. Like, it doesn't have to be a huge shift, but it's all about respecting yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to schedule another Zoom call. So if you're interested in hopping on, definitely hop on next week. And, you know, we get to know each other. And that's part of
that's part of it.
Process. Had a couple new people come on. So it's not always the same people, which is amazing.
Good. That's awesome. Good.
Michelle, thank you. I'm just going to double check here. Make sure there's no questions. Yes. All right. I think we're good. All right,
good. Michelle. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was good. I love it. Hopefully it was helpful for people.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when you go back and look at all the comments, you'll have to go back and look.
Okay,
a few comments too.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. I love you guys. Bye.